Hey there and welcome back to Mass Effect. My name is Pete and today we complete the negotiation assignment, which is the Renegade morality assignment. In the last episode we returned to the Citadel after the events on Vermeer and we promptly got ourselves grounded. We have now escaped with the help of Captain Anderson. That means, however, that we cannot return to the Citadel at the moment. And so, before heading off to Ilos, let's travel to the Plutus system in the Hades Gamma Cluster.
Message coming in. Patching it through.
I have a difficult assignment, Commander. You're the only one I can trust to get it done. There's a criminal leader named Darius in the Skillian Verge who controls most of the raider activity. I'd like you to negotiate a ceasefire with him.
Well, we're more the type to go in and clear the area and not exactly one for negotiation.
Wouldn't an Alliance negotiator be better suited for this assignment?
Darius won't respect an Alliance negotiator. He built his empire by killing his rivals. But with your very public achievements, you represent a strong image that Darius has to respect. Show him that the Alliance won't back down. Show him he better make peace while he can.
Right, not exactly sure how this is going to go, but we will accept anyway.
If you're certain it's a good idea, I'll do what I can.
Excellent, Commander. I appreciate your help. The meeting will take place on a remote barren planet. I'm transmitting the coordinates now. I'm also transmitting the background for this negotiation. 5th Fleet out.
Okay, one last time in this playthrough we can do some planet scanning, and we can find a uranium deposit as well as a samarium deposit. And now we can land on our planet of interest, which is Nonuel. For the squad we will once again go heavy with the biotics and take Liara and Kaidan with us. I will explain why in a few minutes. After we have landed, we can do some minor changes to the equipment and equip Shepard with anti-organic shredder rounds, as well as slightly upgrade the armors on Liara and Kaidan. And that's it, time to get moving, and our first location is very close by. It is marked as an anomaly on the map, and as usual we will speed things up slightly until we get there. What we find is an abandoned container with what looks to be some form of vehicle parked outside. We also see 2 dead bodies next to a crate, and we can examine that crate and learn that these 2 bodies were in fact mercenaries who apparently fought over the crate and managed to kill each other simultaneously in the process. With both of them dead, we can take the contents of the crate, and that gives us another set of Matriarch's writings. We are not done, however, because one of the mercenaries' corpses can be searched to reveal a League of One medallion. And if that wasn't enough, there is also a small crate inside of the container, one that is admittedly somewhat tricky to access, but it shouldn't be overlooked because it gives us 2 high-level ammo upgrades. And with that, we have our first location scavenged now. Let's get back into the Mako and proceed to the next one, and let's once again speed things up for that. A few moments later, we arrive next to a crashed probe that we can salvage, and high electronics are required for that, so it's a good idea to have someone with tech skills in the squad. From the probe itself, we can then loot a grenade, a weapon and an ammo upgrade, and that's also all we can get here, so let's return to the Mako and continue. At this point, maybe also a few words about the planet that we're on. As you might have been able to see already, we have a level 1 heat hazard here on Nonuel, which is the result of lots of volcanic activity, leading to a surface temperature well above the boiling point of water. Nonuel is also a planet where element 0 is present, the rare element that is not only used in FTL space travel in Mass Effect, but also to strengthen biotics and to produce medicine. And this occurrence of element 0 on Nonuel is actually something we should keep in mind, as it will play a small role in the assignment later on. Now back to the action at hand, we have reached a large flat surface, and you might already be able to guess what that means. Yes, exactly, thresher. By now we should of course be somewhat accustomed to them. That however does not change the fact that we have to be careful here, otherwise we could see ourselves get killed pretty quickly. The thresher here is also very close to the outer edge of the map, so we also need to pay attention to that and not drive off too far into the red, otherwise we might end up being respawned right where we started. Now, thanks to some slight fast forwarding, we are already at the end of the fight, which means as usual we can step outside of the Mako, grab our gun and finish the Maw off on foot.
You need to turn back, Commander. You're going beyond the range of the
As we have reached the level cap already, this will not give us any additional experience points, but we have done it this way for the entirety of the playthrough and I'd like to keep things consistent. Now, apart from fighting the thresher more, one of the reasons we came here was to survey this mineral deposit, which we have completed now, and that means our next destination is the base of Lord Darius. Now, about that, we are sent here to negotiate a ceasefire. Keep in mind, however, that this assignment only unlocks after accumulating a high number of Renegade points. That means, at least in theory, the Alliance should know that Shepard is not one to always solve a situation peacefully. Now, in our case, we have about as many Renegade points as we have Paragon points, but in general, sending a more or less Renegade-ish leaning Spectre over to negotiate with a criminal leader, yeah, that might not necessarily end up with everyone walking away happily. Now, before we enter the base, we will make a quick pit stop at the Samarium deposit over here, but after surveying that we can proceed and a few seconds later find ourselves in front of Darius' base. Inside, things are peaceful for the moment, but we can already see that Darius is not alone. There is a solid number of armed people around, while Darius himself resides on the balcony.
I'd hope the Alliance would take this meeting seriously. Instead, they insult me by sending a military grunt to show me how tough they are. Your file says you couldn't even save the rest of your unit on a cruise. You got everyone killed.
And he definitely knows how to push our buttons, but let's remember we have come here to negotiate and not to exchange insults. So this will be the first and likely also the last time we swallow down an angry response and instead try to get back to business.
I don't believe my background is relevant here, Mr. Darius. Shall we talk?
Actually, given my rank, I'd prefer that you call me Lord Darius. Or how about your lordship if my name is too difficult for you?
Now, however, I think Darius is slowly crossing the line, so let's put him back in his place.
Is that a bad joke? I've killed worse than you on my way to real problems.
You can't speak to me that way. You and your alliance owe me, Shepard. You see this gun? This is your gun. Your military set me up here, and now it wants to pretend it doesn't know me. But I know the truth. The Alliance needed me here, so treat me with the respect I deserve.
Well, this seems to be an interesting turn of events, so let's investigate a bit further.
You said we set you up. Did the Alliance give you weapons?
After the Batarians were driven out of the Verge, the Alliance wanted to stabilize the region. I had the strongest syndicate in the area. They gave me the weapons and money I needed to take over. So do not pretend we are so different, soldier. I deserve your Alliance's gratitude, not these attacks.
Now, as has become quite obvious throughout the conversation, this simply boils down to one of two choices. We can either play along with his arrogance and try to negotiate that ceasefire, or we can choose the slightly more proper way to respond.
You want the respect you deserve, you piece of crap? Here you go.
You can't talk. The Alliance will learn to respect me when I send them your bloody corpse!
Alright, combat, and I think that was about to be expected. After all, Darius did push quite hard to escalate this situation. Our strategy in this fight will be to leave the ground floor as quickly as possible and dash into the hallway that leads to the upper area. That is simply done to reduce the amount of open area we have around us, but of course it opens us up to be attacked from both sides. Darius has forces on the ground and upper floor, and he himself comes from above as well, and all in all this can be a very tough fight, especially on higher difficulties. The enemy squad consists of Darius himself and 8 of his so-called retainers. Among those 8 we have 2 snipers and 3 Krogan. So a rather large and dangerous group of enemies, which is likely also one of the reasons this assignment is locked behind the Renegade point threshold, as that will at least somewhat ensure that it is not taken on too early. Of course, we came well prepared, including the choice to bring 2 bionics with us, which makes this fight and especially the situation where we are surrounded from both sides a lot easier. Having lots of biotic abilities is also invaluable when fighting Krogan, as it almost always gives you a chance to either lift them up or throw them around, and killing them while they're in the air or on the ground will avoid them getting back up again. And here we are, the last of the retainers dead and the assignment more or less completed. We are now left with, and I quote, one last crackpot self-proclaimed lord out on the frontier, as well as with an empty base full of loot. We start with a malfunctioning object in this room down here in the basement, and then work our way towards the row of shelves here. Both the left and the right side each hold an upgrade kit. Up next, we can head upstairs from where Darius talked down to us earlier, where we can find arguably the most valuable loot of the area inside another room. And that room is an interesting one because if we had resolved this peacefully, which is possible, that room would have remained locked. Simply leaving and re-entering the base would solve that issue, but I'm not quite sure whether or not that was actually intended. If the negotiation ends in bloodshed, the room will be unlocked once the last enemy falls, and we can get our hands on a hardened storage locker, 2 weapon lockers, and an aid station. There is also a terminal that we need to access to open our way back out. Once the fighting starts, the exit back out of the base will be locked, likely as a measure to keep us from running away. Now with the base cleared, everything looted and the exit open again, let's head back down and then leave. Now we have one more fight coming up, and that is why I drew the weapons here, but for the moment let's quickly talk a bit more about Darius. Like I mentioned, it is possible to resolve this assignment peacefully. That would be the Paragon option, however it requires cooperation with Darius. And as you might have noticed, he is not the most pleasant guy to work with. As a matter of fact, in order to reach a ceasefire, you not only have to apologize on behalf of the Alliance for mining on his asteroid, but you also have to pay him with money, Element Zero, and the equipment to produce the illegal drug Red Sand. This would then allow the Alliance to mine on the asteroid again, but in my opinion the price for that is just too high. Additionally, Darius seems like the type of person who might go back on this promise whenever it suits him, and on top of that, giving him basically a free pass to produce an illegal drug, I don't know, I think the path we chose leaves the Alliance a bit better off. Not to mention that Darius more or less asked for a bullet. Now, once again, we have made it to an area that looks somewhat familiar, and once again, upon arrival, we are greeted by a thresher maw. I believe Nonuel is the only planet in Mass Effect 1 that is home to not 1 but 2 thresher maws, but then again we handled ourselves quite well in the first fight. I don't see a reason why we wouldn't do that here. This one is a bit more annoying, however, at least it was for me, because I found it somewhat difficult to find a position where I could comfortably fire at the maw, while at the same time retaining enough freedom of movement to rock the Mako back and forth, and simultaneously also staying far enough away from the maw in order to not be instantly killed by its close-range attack. In the end I found a solid spot right here, but the fight took a bit longer than the first one. Also, in contrast to the first fight, this maw is not actually guarding anything, and defeating it is actually the last item on our to-do list, so once we have killed it, we can go straight back to the Normandy. Now let's quickly speed things up again here. The fight itself is not too exciting, and then slow things back down as Shepard steps outside of the Mako for the final blow. And here we are, that is everything we can do on Nonuel completed.
Area secured.
Let's now head back to the Normandy, where we can have a quick debriefing.
Message coming in. Patching it through.
I'm sorry that you were unable to negotiate with Darius peacefully. His death is regrettable. Nevertheless, the resulting chaos will create a power vacuum that makes future raids upon our miners unlikely.
And you remember, I mentioned this earlier, it does seem now like our decision to kill Darius was awfully convenient for the Alliance.
You didn't think I'd negotiate with him. You wanted me to kill him.
Sometimes extreme measures must be taken to ensure humanity's safety. Or did you think you were the only one willing to break the rules to get the job done? Thank you for your assistance in this matter, Commander. Fifth Fleet out.
Alright, seems like we just took part in an unofficial assassination mission, but to be fair, the end result is probably for the best. And speaking of the end result, we have now completed every single assignment there is in Mass Effect 1. The only thing left for us to do is to head off to Ilos and wrap up the main mission. And we will begin doing that in the next episode. Until then, I can say thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.